Hello, you're watching World Highlights here on TVR World, where on a weekly basis we bring you the recap of news that made headlines throughout the week. And this week we are shining a light on latest from Gaza, Mexico, as well as important events from around the globe. I'm Rahmat Idris. This is World Highlights. In our first segment, the Palestinian Ministry of Health said a teenager died after being shot by the Israeli army in the northern West Bank. The United Arab Emirates sent 30 tons of medical aid to Gaza, while protesters in Washington, D.C. opposed a Gaza fundraising event hosted by Donald Trump. Here is the full report.
Despite the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in October 2025, fuel and cooking gas remain in short supply due to Israeli restriction on imports and damage to storage and distribution facilities during the conflict. Before the war, Gaza's monthly demand for cooking gas ranged from 12,000 to 15,000 tons, with the average household using about 40 kilograms. Currently, each family receives just 8 kilograms of gas per distribution cycle, which may last up to 3 months at a cost of around $8. On the black market, however, the same amount can fetch up to $30. As a result, many families opt to sell part of their gas rations at high prices for basic necessities like flour, rice, oil, and medicine. A fuel shortage is especially severe as Ramadan approaches, when gas demand typically increases. Palestinian Ministry of Health announced Sunday the death of a Palestinian teenager who succumbed to injuries sustained after being shot by the Israeli army in the northern West Bank. In a brief statement, the ministry said that Mohammed Hanani, 17, died from critical wounds he sustained after being shot by Israeli soldiers on Saturday evening in the town of Beit Forik, east of Nablus, without providing further details. The UAE chivalrous Night 3 operation dispatched a new batch of 8 convoys to the Gaza Strip on Sunday, carrying over 30 tons of medical supplies and medications as part of ongoing efforts to bolster the enclave's healthcare system. According to Emirates News Agency, the medical aid convoy's entry coincides with broader relief efforts. This week has seen the entry of various relief convoys, including Ramadan food parcels and winter clothing. The UAE launched Operation Chivalrous Night 3 on November 5, 2023, under directives from UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan to provide humanitarian relief to Palestinians in Gaza following the outbreak of conflict between Israel and Hamas on October 7, 2023. Anti-Trump and pro-Palestine protesters rallied in Washington, D.C. on Thursday against the inauguration of the Board of Peace, which President Donald Trump held to raise funds for the rebuilding of Gaza. She claimed that the board is trying to undermine the sovereignty and the self-determination of the Palestinians. Another demonstrator declared that the board is intended to achieve what the U.S. and Israel failed to achieve militarily on the ground. A Board of Peace was initially established to oversee implementation of the Gaza ceasefire, although this week Trump himself reiterated that it could go far beyond Gaza into other conflict resolution. There are over 20 members of the Board of Peace in total, many from the Global South, with numerous European nations having declined Trump's invitation. The board was inaugurated by the U.S. President at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Two Palestinians were killed and several others injured in Beit Lahia on Tuesday by Israeli army gunfire, according to Palestinian media reports. According to Palestinian media reports, the two killed were identified as Majdi Kaban and Faraz Kaban. At the time of publication, the Israeli army had not commented on the reported incident. According to figures released by Palestinian health authorities in Gaza, more than 72,000 Palestinians have been killed and over 171,000 injured since the start of the conflict. In January, U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff announced the second phase of President Donald Trump's plan aimed at ending the Gaza conflict, which includes Hamas's disarmament, the formation of a technocratic administration, and the start of reconstruction efforts.
More news on World Highlights will come your way when we return in a few minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to World Highlights. On our next segment, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he expects the EU's 90 billion euros loan by spring after coalition talks. From Tehran, Iran's government spokesperson said the country is ready for diplomatic or military scenarios ahead of nuclear talks with the U.S. in Geneva. Meanwhile, Venezuela handed over rebuilt homes to families displaced by a U.S. operation in La Guaira. At the UN in Geneva, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla accused the U.S. of seeking a humanitarian catastrophe in Cuba. And a vessel carrying 103 Marines arrived in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, following unrest linked to El Mencho. Here is the full report.
Volodymyr Zelensky told reporters he had no friends, but that he would have the U.S. last 90 billion euro loan by the spring, followed so-called coalition of the willing talks. It came after Hungary vowed to block the loan and vetoed the 20th sanctions package on Russia on Monday, following the latest dispute with Ukraine over the Druzhba pipeline. Kiev claims the pipeline supplying oil from Russia to Eastern Europe was damaged by a Russian strike, while Hungary and Slovakia claim it is in fact operational, and Ukraine is halting supplies for political reasons. Last week, the European Commission admitted that it wouldn't be putting any pressure on Ukraine to get the pipeline open again. The Hungarian government has also repeatedly accused Brussels and Kiev of interfering in its upcoming April elections, as part of an alleged EU plan to get around the Hungarian veto on Ukraine's accession. EU and Ukraine have denied it. Iran's government spokesperson Fatemeh Mohajerani said on Tuesday that Tehran is prepared for all scenarios, whether diplomatic or military, ahead of a new round of nuclear talks with the United States scheduled for Tuesday in Geneva. She emphasized that the administration remains vigilant in monitoring regional developments while staying committed to the negotiation process. This upcoming session follows two previous rounds of indirect talks held in Muscat and Geneva over the past 2 weeks, with both sides described as positive. However, these negotiations are unfolding amid high tensions, as U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of possible military action and reinforced American forces in the region. The government of Venezuela handed over rebuilt homes to families displaced following the U.S. operation that took place on January the 3rd, during which multiple explosions were reported in the coastal state of La Guaira. The affected homes have been fully remodeled and modernized with technical and material support from the central government. Residents say the effort represents more than just physical reconstruction. It is also a step toward emotional recovery. Authorities describe the handover of keys as a symbolic and practical milestone in La Guaira's recovery and a step towards restoring normality in the region. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez accused the United States before the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva on Tuesday of attempting to provoke a humanitarian catastrophe in Cuba, though its energy blockade. Foreign Minister emphasized that the Cuban people will defend their sovereignty and right to self-determination with the greatest vigor and courage, pledging to work towards preventing a humanitarian crisis. The speech follows the United States' decision to impose tariffs on nations trading oil with the island. The measures have intensified Cuba's energy crisis, affecting healthcare services, universities, and public transport as the island faces ongoing fuel shortages and recurring blackouts. A vessel carrying 103 Marine infantry personnel arrived in Puerto Vallarta on Tuesday to reinforce security after unrest erupted following the reported capture and death of drug trafficker Ruben Nemesio Oseguera, alias El Mencho. The Marine infantry troops will join surveillance and prevention operation as part of the security deployment currently in place in the state of Jalisco, the Secretariat of the Navy announced on Tuesday. Alongside the Marine personnel, pickup vehicles were also deployed to strengthen surveillance and security tasks following arson attacks on shops and local businesses in the city. The Usumacinta vessel can transport 2 amphibious Marine infantry companies and 2,000 tons of cargo on its tank deck. Its function is to serve as a logistics operations platform in disaster situations and affected areas.
We'll be back with more reports right here on World Highlights. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are still watching this week's editions of World Highlights here on TVI World. On our third segment, heavy rainfall caused severe flooding across multiple regions, isolating communities and damaging infrastructure. In Peru, the Zana River swept away bridges in Lambayeque. In Ecuador, rivers overflowed in Milagro. And in Bali, Legian and Kuta were paralyzed. Southeastern Brazil reported at least 28 deaths in Minas Gerais, while New York City airports faced weekend flight cancellations due to a winter storm. Here are the full reports.
Heavy rains in Lambayeque region have swollen the Zana River, destroying bridges and isolating communities like La Otra Banda, El Limon, and San Rafael. Residents struggle to cross with makeshift boats, while access to jobs, health centers, and food is disrupted. Authorities are coordinating a temporary bridge, though it may take 45 to 50 days, with the Puente Fierro as a paid alternative. Severe flooding in Milagro, Ecuador, has submerged streets and forced families to evacuate homes. 3 people have died, over 9,200 affected, and nearly 3,000 homes damaged. Authorities declared a red alert across multiple provinces and set up shelters for displaced residents. Heavy rains in Bali's Badung Regency flooded areas like Legian and Kuta, submerging streets and trapping residents. Rescue teams used boats to evacuate locals and tourists, while emergency crews deployed bombs to drain water. Authorities are monitoring flood-prone zones and coordinating mitigation efforts. A severe winter storm in New York City caused heavy snow, high winds, and widespread flight cancellations, stranding passengers. Some boroughs received up to 19 inches of snow, and a travel ban was imposed on non-essential vehicles. Travelers face repeated disruptions, rebookings, and logistical hassles due to the storm. Severe flooding in Juiz de Fora and Uba killed at least 28 and displaced over 400 people. Landslides and heavy rains have devastated homes and infrastructure, prompting a state of calamity in Juiz de Fora. Authorities warn more rain is expected, with February already the rainiest month on record.
We'll return with the highlights from around the globe in just a few minutes. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on this week's editions of World Highlights on TVR World. Our last segment, the largest Ramadan lantern in Lebanon was lit on Friday evening in Nabatieh's historic market as the country marks the holy month of Ramadan. Meanwhile, hundreds of worshippers gathered at the Grand Al-Nouri Mosque in Mosul on Sunday to perform Taraweeh prayers during Ramadan, marking the return to one of Iraq's most historic religious landmarks after years of devastation. Let's take a look.
Hundreds of worshippers gathered at the Grand Mosque of Niamey to mark the start of Ramadan with Taraweeh prayers. The ceremony emphasized spiritual reflection and fasting following Islamic teachings. The event holds special significance amid Niger's ongoing political transition after the July 2023 coup. Lebanon's largest Ramadan lantern, nearly 20 meters tall, was lit in Nabatieh Historic Market to mark the holy month. Residents gathered as volunteers fired a traditional Ramadan cannon, celebrating the festival and reviving the damaged market. The lantern will host cultural events and performances throughout Ramadan. Hundreds gathered at Mosul's Grand Al-Nouri Mosque for Ramadan Taraweeh prayers, marking its return after years of war damage. The mosque and its iconic Al-Hadba minaret were built with UAE support under UNESCO's initiative. Worshippers filled the halls and courtyard, celebrating the revival of this historic religious landmark. A soup kitchen in Aida Camp near Bethlehem prepares 500 to 800 Ramadan meals daily for families in need. Volunteers deliver food directly to homes while protecting recipients' privacy. The initiative supports vulnerable residents amid worsening economic conditions in the West Bank. Muslims in Toamasina are distributing 3,000 hot meals daily during Ramadan to families affected by Cyclone Gezani. Volunteers prepare and serve food to thousands impacted by the storm. The initiative also supports local institutions, aiding recovery efforts after the cyclone. The International Red Cross set up a bakery at Yarmouk shelter in Gaza City, helping displaced families bake bread during Ramadan. Residents say the bakery eases hardship amid ongoing shortages and displacement. Fresh bread is distributed daily, offering relief and a sense of normalcy.
And that concludes this week's episodes of World Highlights. I'm Rahmat Idris in Jakarta, Indonesia. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.